All right, so we're going to talk about percents, decimals, and fractions. I hope you were able to get the ratio video last week, and so you're all caught up on how to do ratios. So we're going to talk about percentages, which is useful about the conversation we were just having about the coronavirus death rate, which we figured out was about 4%. That's a percentage. We're going to do a little, let's say a little lighter percentages than that. So for example, let's say that I give a survey of 100 students and 29 of them say they eat Chick-fil-A at least once a week. Everybody likes Chick-fil-A, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's chicken.
So here's my question. What percent don't eat Chick-fil-A at least once a week? This will be useful information to the corporation Chick-fil-A. What percentage of people are not eating at Chick-fil-A, and how can we get them to eat there? Maybe if we tell them, have a blessed day when they drive out of the drive-thru, everybody will like us. So what percent means, the word percent means
What percent?
out of 100. So if I say 29 out of these 100 people eat Chick-fil-A, it's a really easy process for me to figure out the percentage who eat at Chick-fil-A. It's 29 out of 100, which we know as 29% eat Chick-fil-A at least once a week. $29 out of 100 is 29%. But the question was, what percent don't eat Chick-fil-A at least once a week? So when you have percentages, what does the total have to add up to?
100.
100%, exactly right, Mary. So if I have 29% who eat it at least once a week, the way I figure out the number that don't eat it is I do 100% minus 29%, which is 71% who do not eat Chick-fil-A at least once a week. So most of what we're going to be dealing with here is two percentages, like you do or you don't, and so they're always going to add up to 100%. But if I did something crazy, like I gave you 11%, like I said, well, you know, 4% of people say Taco Bell is their favorite, and 29% say Chick-fil-A is their favorite, and 8% say McDonald's is their favorite, etc. I would expect all of those percentages, if I surveyed a certain number of people, to add up to 100%. If they don't add up to 100%, I start to get a little suspicious about the percent. So far, so good?
Yeah.
The problem is, my calculator, and in fact just math in general, does not really tolerate the percent symbol too well. The percent symbol doesn't exist on a lot of calculators. So we need a way to do percent, even if I don't have a calculator, even if I'm doing it like long multiplication, there's no good way to do long multiplication with a percent. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how do you turn a percent into a decimal? Okay, so notice that I said 29 out of 100 was 29%. If I were to write out 29 divided by 100 and divide it, if I divided that out, I would get 0.29. 29 divided by 100 is 0.29. So 0.29 is the same thing as 29% out of 100. 0.29 is 29%. And so the way that I can turn any percent into a decimal is by dividing it by 100. So for example, if I gave you, let's say 32%, and I asked you to turn that into a decimal, all you would do is 32 divided by 100. As it turns out, that is 0.32. So 32% as a decimal is 0.32. Dividing by 100 is how I get that number, but surely I don't need to write out this part in the middle, right? Do I really need that to get the answer? Do I really need to write 32 over 100 every time? Or is there a shortcut to go from 32% to 0.32? What am I actually doing there?
You can do like the like in the last, not like the last with the ratio, but with the decimals, it goes from like tenths, hundredths. So you could do that.
Good. How many places am I moving the decimal to turn the percent into a decimal?
2.
I'm moving it 2 spots. That's exactly right. So if I gave you a percentage that already had a decimal in it, let's say, for example, 7.5%, and I wanted to turn 7.5% into a decimal, what would I do? Well, I'd take this decimal and I'd move it 2 places to the left. So there's 1 place. If I moved it 1 place to the left, I would have 0.75. What would I have if I moved it 2 places to the left? 0.075. So 7.5% as a decimal is 0.075. I've got that 0 placeholder in front. It's a good math practice to get into, but not required. If you just wrote 0.075, that's fine. But if I move it 2 spots to the left, 0.075. Easy, right? What if I give you a real gigantic percent? A percent that's over 100.
Oh my God.
It's so huge.
You evil teacher, you evil person.
Music to my ears. So if I move the decimal 2 times, where does it end up? So 1 time would give me 12.0, and 2 times would give me 1.2. So 120% as a decimal is 1.2. You can write 1.20 if you like, that's fine. But 1.2. Okay, what if I have a really teeny tiny decimal? .02%, which is the percentage of people that are killed by the flu virus every year. 0.02% of people who get the flu are killed by it. What is that as a decimal?
If you moved it 2 times.
That's a great idea. You're so smart. So if I moved it 1 time, I'd have 0.002. And if I moved it again, I'd have to put another 0 placeholder there in front, just like that. And so I end up with 0.0002. So far, so good?
Yes.
Yes.
Most of the time, we're going to turn these into decimals. Usually that's the easiest math to do. There are times when you might want to turn it into a fraction. If I'm looking for a percentage of a fraction, I might want to be able to write my percent as a fraction. So let me show you what that would look like. If I had, let's say, 15%, and I wanted to write 15% as a fraction, I would do the same thing that I did up here at the top with 29%. I just put it over 100. So 15% is the same thing as 15 over 100. Pretty simple, but I need to reduce that fraction. 15 and 100, what can both of those numbers be divided by?
5.
They can both be divided by 5, very good. So 15 divided by 5 is 3. 100 divided by 5 is 20. And so my nice reduced simplest form fraction would be 3/20. It gets a little ugly when you want to convert a percentage that has a decimal in it into a fraction, because if I just put 8.1 over 100, I break one of the cardinal sins of math, which is combining a fraction and a decimal into the same number. Oops, an extra 0 there. So I've got a decimal, 8.1, as the numerator to a fraction, 8.1 over 100. It's just gross. It's just gross to have a decimal and a fraction together in one. That is an unholy union. We talked a little while ago about whenever we had fractions, how do we fix that? How do you get rid of the decimal in the fraction? So refresh my memory, people who have not done this in 3 weeks. How do I turn 8.1 into a whole number?
I do.
What was your second choice?
I mean, like, I was
Your first
thinking of
and
like
your
do, like,
second choice were both divided? That's unfortunate.
No, I was just thinking in my head like maybe like the mixed numbers. Like do like the
Oh yeah, we could divide it, but if we divided it, we would get a decimal for the answer, and our goal here is to turn this into a fraction. So look just at the 8.1. How can I take the decimal 8.1 and turn it into a whole number like just 81? How can I take this decimal and just slide it over one spot so I have an 81?
maybe slide it over one spot.
I could just slide it over one spot, that's true. As long as I did the same thing in the bottom, I could slide the bottom over one spot, which instead of 100 would give me 1,000. You're right. But what am I doing? You're telling me the shortcut. What am I actually doing there? I'm multiplying the top and the bottom by something. What am I multiplying it by?
10? Like tenths, hundred, thousandths?
Yeah, I'm moving it from one decimal place to the other.
I mean, like, okay, I feel like if you would see my face, you would be even more.
If I could see your face, I might be covering my eyes and running for the door.
Yeah, I know you would.
I'll just tell you, I'm multiplying the top and the bottom by 10. 8.1 times 10 is 81. So on the top, I have 81. And on the bottom, I have 1,000. That'd be okay unless I could reduce that. Can I reduce 81 1,000?
Yes, you could probably actually. No, you can't. Never mind. Sorry.
The answer to your question is the opposite of yes or no. 81 over 1,000. That's as low as it'll go. We can't reduce it anymore. That is the end. The answer, as I was so often told when trying to get a prom date, is no. All right, what do you think?
No.
Yes. What's step number one been on the last two problems?
Moving the decimal over.
That hasn't been step number one. What was the first thing I did on these last two problems? What was step one?
Putting it over 100.
Putting it over 100. That's exactly right. So 275 over 100. Just because it's a big percentage doesn't change what I do. It's still exactly the same. And now I reduce it if I can. What can 275 and 100 both be divided by?
5.
5 for sure, maybe something bigger than 5, but at least 5. So let's try that. If I divide the top and the bottom by 5, so 100 divided by 5 is the easy one. 275 divided by 5 is a little bit worse. That one turns out to be 55. Have I reduced it down as far as it will go, or can I keep going?
Keep going.
I bet I could keep going, because 55 and 20 can both be divided by what? They can both be divided by 5 again, exactly right. All right, let's do that. Divided by 5, divided by 5. So 55 divided by 5 is 11, and 20 divided by 5 is 4. So I like 11/4 as an answer. That seems pretty good. But if you're really down on 11/4, you could also do 2 3/4, the mixed number, and that would be good too. I like both of those. I like 11/4 better if I have to do some math with it later, and I like 2 3/4 better if I'm having a conversation with a human. If I say, how long of a board do you need? I want them to say 2 3/4 foot. I don't want them to say 11/4 feet. That would really upset me.
That would too. That would upset me too.
Can you go the other way? Can you turn 0.77 into a percentage?
Yes.
You can. Prove it.
Okay. Sorry, I have mac and cheese in my teeth. Okay. You can move the decimal. Flat the decimal.
It was 77%. Hold on just one second. Mrs. Taylor is talking. All right, sorry everybody, we're having a little bit of a crisis here. My my family is having some problems with their water pump, and they need a part from the hardware store right down the street from us, but it closes in 8 minutes. So my wife is going to run down and get the part from the hardware store, and that means you will get to enjoy my child coming in here to hang out with us while she goes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's gonna hang out and do some math with us. All right, come say hey, sweetie. Come on, here we go. Yeah, there we go. We're gonna adapt and improvise. Okay, so 0.081, what do we do to turn that into a percent? So on 0.77, we moved the decimal 2 times to the end to get 77%. We're going to do the same thing for 0.81. We're going to go 1,
That's my
2.
favorite color.
Oh, green is your favorite color. So that gives me 8.1%. Do you think I should highlight it in green because that's your favorite?
Yeah.
There we go. Boom. There's the answer, 8.1%.
That's my green favorite.
Green's your favorite? Good.
Yeah.
So glad. Oh, you're drinking out of a green can too. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do before we start doing some problems with these is turning a fraction into a percent. So for example, if you had 23 out of 50, how can we turn that into a percent? And the answer to this question is way easier than all the rest of them, not because this is simple math, but because you have done this before. To turn a fraction into a percent, first we turn the fraction into a decimal. And to turn it into a decimal, all we have to do is do the numerator divided by the denominator. So, you gonna help me? We're gonna do 23 divided by, your handwriting is so good.
I don't know sugar. I don't know what I need.
Mommy, where do you go?
Daisy, do you want to go? Sorry, I'm talking to my dog.
All right, so 50 divided by 23 is what we're gonna do. 50 will not go into 23 at all, so we're gonna go ahead and add our decimal onto the end, and we'll do 50 into 230. That will go 4 times. 4 times 50 is 200. And we'll subtract. Let's add our zeros.
Daddy,
Carry it down. Hold on, I'm
Daddy.
gonna switch colors. How do you feel about switching to zero? That would be switching to green for our zero. There we go. So 50 goes into 300 6 times. And 6 times 50 is 300, which leaves us with a remainder of 0.
I'm helping you.
So you are. So the decimal goes right there.
Mommy.
0.46, and so that is 46%.
Where mommy going?
She went to the hardware store.
They could cost you better.
I think so. 0.46.
Let me use this. Kill you all.
Does that make sense?
So you only move it over 2 times every time?
I didn't move this one at all. I just brought the decimal.
No.
Straight up from the bottom here. But oh, to turn a decimal into a percent, yes, you just move the decimal 2 times. So if it's a percent and you want to turn it into a decimal, you move 2 times to the left. And then if it's a decimal and you want to turn into a percent, you move 2 times to the right.
Look at I'm drawing.
So good. Such a good artist.
Looks like a gun.
Look what I'm doing.
Good to see that.
What is he here?
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
There's a friend over there on your computer.
Yeah, those are my friends. Those are my students. I'm teaching them. Now you're helping. You're helping. You're like my assistant teacher. You want to wave? Say hi.
Hello.
All right. So I need this back. Okay, so now we're going to do some actual problems using this.
I'm helping you. Can I have this back?
All right, turns out the hardware store closes at 5:30, so Grandma and Grandpa Taylor are not going to have water this evening. Exciting.
Oh, no.
The only place in town that has the parts they need is Ace just down the street, and they closed 30 minutes ago. So
Oh, no.
they're going to be grungy and gross tomorrow. All right. So the important word in this problem here is the word of. 12% of 80. Do you remember what the word of means?
Out of. No.
Of means multiply. When you see the word of, that means to multiply. So 12% of 80 is going to look like this. 12%, which is 0.12, of, meaning multiply, 80, and then the word is means equals. So 12% of 80 equals what number? What number is our variable? So I'm going to use X just because I'm not a very creative fellow.
$9.6.
Is that what you got? My goodness, you're quick. I didn't know you were already working it out.
Huh?
So I would do 80 multiplied by 0.12. Yep, you're right. 9.6. Well done. So the value is 9.6. Good job. Okay. How about this one? What percent of 60 is 20? So what percent is my variable? Because that's the part I don't know. What percent is it? Of means multiply, and is means equals. So when I write this out as an equation, what percent of 60 is 20? So how do I solve this one?
Could you divide by 60?
Exactly right. Divide by 60.
That'd be cool.
$20 divided by 60 is an easy enough equation where you might be able to do it without writing anything out. 20 divided by 60 reduces to 1/3. And 1/3 is everybody's favorite decimal, 0.3333, etc. So what percentage would that be?
Oh, 0.33%. I mean 33%.
33.3%.
Yes.
Good. Let me give you a really big percent. Let's see if you can handle one of those. %125% of 16 is what number? So how do I write this out?
1.25 times
Very
16.
good. 1.25 of
Just multiply
16 is
question mark or X where
equals, is means equals, and then comes the question
Oh.
mark or X or Y or whatever. So this one's just a multiplication problem. I just do 1.25 times 16 and I'm done. That's the answer. So let's come over here to the side and do 1.25 multiplied by 16.
20. Well, like 20% really.
Like
It's
20.
2,000.
Did you just say like? This is a math class, young lady.
Oh.
Give exact answers. 20.
Yeah, 20. Woohoo! Did it.
So 125% of 16 is 20. When you take a percentage that is more than 100, the number gets bigger. The number was 16. 100% of 16 is 16. 125% of 16 is more than 16. So if your boss is going to give you a raise and he says, good news, I'm going to give you 75% of your salary. You're like, wait, that's not a raise. That's less money if you give me 75% of my salary. But if your boss says, I'm going to give you 175% of your salary, that's a raise. 100% is what you're making now, and then 75% more than that. So this problem that we just did is the equivalent of getting a 25% raise. Let's say you make $16 an hour, and your boss says, I'm giving you a 25% raise. That means now you will be making $20 an hour. 125% is 100% what you were making already, and then the 25% raise for a total of 125%. That make sense? So if your boss says you're getting 75% of your check, you tell him where to stick it. And if he says you're getting 175% of your check, you say either thank you very much or what's the catch? What am I going to have to do? There's got to be a trick to it if you're getting that big of a raise. Sorry, I wrote those kind of close. So this problem is one where we're looking for the percent. We did one like this just a few minutes ago, find the percent. So what percent of 1,041 is that number? So again, we're just going to write it one piece at a time. What percent of, so what percent means x. I'm just using x just because. You can use whatever you want. Of 1041 means times 1041 is 333.12 means equals 333.1 or 333 and 1200ths if you're nasty. This seems like one step, right? One step to get x by itself. Right?
Yes.
What's the step?
Divide it.
By what?
1041.
There we go. You got it. Nailed it. Your math teacher is so good. So my answer is whatever 333.12 divided by 1041 is. That's a piece of cake. I think you should just go ahead and do that on your own. I think you got it. That problem's so easy. If you don't know how to do it, I can't help you. Everybody knows what 333 and 1200ths divided by 1041 is. Obviously. So I know I can't do 333 divided by 1041. I can do 3,331 divided by 1041. I feel like that's going to be 3 times. It might only be 2, but I feel good about 3, so I'm going to try that first. If 3 doesn't work out, I will blame Mary. And eureka, it works. When I multiply 3 times 1041, I get 3,123. What a relief. You're going to have to take a lot of abuse if that didn't work, Mary. So we'll subtract here. 802. And we will bring down the 2. Now that's just beautiful. How many times can 2,082 be divided by 1,041?
2.
2, exactly 2. Check this out. It's exactly 2,082. Wonders never cease. And in the decimal, we just move straight up, right? So the decimal is right here. We go straight up and put the decimal there. So my answer is 0.32.
Row.
No, it's not. Because the question was, what percent?
32%.
32%. There we go. So I want to show you another way to do these kind of problems using cross multiplication. I don't know if this is going to be your favorite method or not, but I'm going to show it to you. You can decide. Let's try this. 50% of 24 is what number?
Half.
Yes, 50% is half. Now, if I did this the old way, when I say old way, I mean the way that we did 11 seconds ago. That's the old way now. I would do 50% times 24 equals what number? But you can also solve it by doing cross multiplication. The formula for cross multiplication looks like this. And I'll tell you what these variables mean. P is the percent. B is the base amount or the starting amount. A is the new amount. And I can plug in the numbers that I know and do cross multiplication to figure out the answer. So let me show you. In this problem, for example, my percent is 50, and the base amount, the amount I start with, is 24. So I can do A over 24 equals 50 over 100. And then I cross multiply. So I will do A multiplied by 100, which is 100A, equals, there's the tricky part, 24 times 50, which is 1200. Now that's unfortunate, the 1200, but look how nice this next step is. All I gotta do is divide both sides by 100. What is 1200 divided by 100?
It's 12.
12. Now, Mary, right at the beginning when I first wrote this down, I said 50% of 24 is what? And you said half. So what's half of 24?
12.
12, eureka, it worked. Okay, let's try a different one.
Huh. I don't know if I like that.
Shh, it can hear you. You're going to hurt its feelings. 4% of 50 is 50. This is another kind of silly problem, just to get you used to the formula here. So the percent is P. The initial amount, or the base amount, is 50. And the new amount is 50. So if I set up my formula, it would be 50 over 50 equals P over 100. And then I cross multiply. So 50 times 100 is 5,000. And 50 times P is 50 P. And then I divide both sides by 50. And this is really easy because what's 5,000 divided by 50? Okay, I thought it was really easy. What's 5,000 divided by 50?
One 5.
Are you trying to hurt me? You want to see me cry? Is that what you want?
Yes, I'm gonna see you cry.
Mean. Well, lop off those zeros there.
It's 100.
It's 100. Oh my gosh, look at that. 50 is 100% of 50. If you're making $50 an hour, boy, that would be nice. And your boss says, I'm going to give you 100% of your check. That means you get $50 an hour. Oh my gosh, we'd love to make $50 an hour. That'd be amazing. I read a couple of days ago that Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy, makes $9 million an hour. That might be an exaggeration, but I bet it's close. $9 million an hour. He makes money faster.
I feel like he should share.
He should share. He is sharing. We get 2 days shipping. That's not free.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, say what you want about Amazon. When I needed toilet paper, they delivered it to my house during this whole pandemic thing.
Yeah, they did.
So.
I worked for them for a little bit in Kansas. We had a factory there.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, that's a lot of walking.
I'm sure. Well, don't worry. You'll be replaced by a robot soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, and forklifts.
All right, let's do one more of these. So this is the percent. P is the percent. The base amount is 8.5. And what number is the amount? So that would be 8.5 over, oh, I got that backwards, sorry. A over 8.5 equals P over 100. Now, one of the reasons that I like the cross multiplication method is because although the first step can sometimes be rough, the algebra is usually very easy. A times 100 is 100A. 8.5 times 20 is not nice. That's going to require a little bit of work from us, but not too bad. It's going to be 170. And then we just divide both sides by 100. Dividing by 100 is really easy. If you divide by 100, we talked about this whenever we were converting from percentages to decimals. Dividing by 100 just moves the decimal 2 spots to the left. So instead of 170, it's 1.7. And there's our answer. You feeling okay about that? You feel like you need one more? Okay, I hear silence, so let's do one more. Sorry, if you were good, that was your time to speak. Be like, no, no, we got this. Sorry, you waited too long. So while we're working this last one, I do want to point out that the cross multiplication method that I'm showing you is optional. If you prefer the other method where you just write out the algebra equation, you'll get the same answer. And the ones where we did the algebra equation, we could have done cross multiplication. I'm showing you 2 different ways to do the same problem. You just pick the one you like the best. I'm just giving you 2 options. I don't care which one you use. You'll get the same answer either way. It's not like you have to know which method to use for which problem. They both work all the time. Cross multiplication is harder to set up, but once you get it set up, it's easy. The other method is easy to set up, but sometimes the math can be a little tricky. So of 800, 800 is my base amount, and 6 is the A, the amount. So my proportion will be 6 over 800 equals P over 100. I'm expecting this number to be kind of small. The percent of 800, that is 6. To get 800 down to 6, I'm expecting a tiny percent. Let's see if I'm right. 6 times 100 is pretty easy, 600. And 800 times P is also pretty easy, 800P. That's pretty easy. Then what?
Divided by 800.
Got it. And 600 divided by 800.
That is, you could probably do 20 for 200.
That's 6/8.
Yeah.
4/4.
So,
That's what that ends up being. And 3/4 is 0.75, which, as we expected it to be a small percent, and it is. It's less than 1%. 6 is less than 1% of 800. And that's percents and decimals and fractions and how they relate to each other. What do you think?
yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah? That's the best I get is yeah? You feel like you could do some of these if I were to give you a pile? If I were to give you
Eventually.
like 90 of these, you could do them, right?
Sure.
A little bit less than 90 of them. How's that? But I'm going to give you a few to practice on.